Hey everyone, my name's JJ and I'm here with Susanna from the Volcano Summit in Antigua, Guatemala. So really excited to be able to chat with Susanna today and to hopefully capture a little bit of the spirit and energy of the Volcano Summit. So,
thank you.
Susanna, starting things off, you've been called the godmother of venture capital in Latin America. Could you talk a little about what that title means to you? I think it's a pretty cool one.
It means a lot because it takes me back to 1999 when I started working in venture capital, investing in venture capital funds, to this day 100 plus investments, investing and getting to know entrepreneurs and building an ecosystem. Imagine what it was, the ecosystem of venture capital in 1999, almost zero. So it is a title of pride for me, but good pride to think we have come a long way, and I've been lucky enough to be witness of that history in the making.
That's really cool. Thanks for sharing. And actually, expanding on that a little bit. So I've found at least that, everyone I speak with that works in venture capital has a different career origin story. It's a fun industry. It's not like law where you go off to law school and and there's sort of a set path. We'd love to hear a little more about your background, and maybe you could tell us, how you got into venture capital and sort of why you chose to focus in Latin America.
Well, first of all, I was born in Argentina, even though most of my life has been in the US. But I never felt the link and the connection with my region of origin. But I love to tell my story of how I got into venture capital because it's not the typical story. People expect that I went to an MBA, I got my MBA, I did maybe investment banking, and then somehow I ended up doing venture capital. And it wasn't at all like that. My first degree was in philosophy and education, which usually shocks people a little bit, and I laugh about that because it has served me very well doing business, because we know that business is all about people. So the skills gotten there were very useful. But then what happened is that I got my degree and immediately I moved to the US. I realized I didn't want to get into the tenure track of an academic career, so I began to work on the nonprofit side, doing a lot of leadership initiatives with young people, usually young women, but not exclusively. And at some point, I got a little bit tired of living in Washington, D.C., and I informed my family I was moving to New York. I was from Buenos Aires. I wanted a little bit of action in my life.
A bigger city, more energy.
Yeah, it's like, oh, please. So I moved to New York. I tried a little bit of everything, journalism, TV, ended up working with an NGO that connected me to a lot of the countries working on the UN. So for 5 years, I was attending the main development and habitat and women conferences of the UN and realizing one thing: I did not want to keep going on the non-profit work. Mm-hmm. So I decided to go back to Columbia University. Once more, I was a little bit stubborn and I said, I'm not gonna go to an MBA. I'm gonna go to international economic policies and see what life offers me after that. And what it did was an incredible opportunity to start working at the innovation lab of the Inter-American Development Bank, mm-hmm. under a manager who was, as I call him this to his face, so I can say it, a gringo who couldn't speak Spanish but truly loved Latin America, mm-hmm. had a zest for innovation, for allowing you to try, innovate, fail, come back, tell him what you learned from that and keep going.
Right.
So from the very start, I was doing a little bit of everything: microfinance, venture capital, and grants. But very soon, the person who was leading venture capital left, mm-hmm. for another side of the IDB. And I went to my boss and I said, I want to take over this. And if you allow me, it will be like catch me if you can.
Right.
I will begin to run and catch me if you can.
You're like, I'm going to crush it.
Yeah, so that's what I did for 20 years.
Nice.
I crushed it.
Nice. That's amazing. Thanks for telling the viewers at home that.
Yeah.
So you've coined the term "made in LAC." Wondering if you could just explain for the viewers at home, the sort of definition of the term, and again, what it means to you.
Well, when I started doing venture capital, every city, every country in Latin America, the only thing they wanted to do was to replicate Silicon Valley. Mm-hmm. And I kept saying, believe me, I live in the US. Silicon Valley cannot even be replicated in other parts of the US. So mm-hmm. don't go that way. But it was very hard because everybody was met with the indifference or the skepticism of investors abroad saying, can something really innovative come from Brazil, mm-hmm. from Argentina? Look at the mess of the politics you have, blah, blah, blah. So what happened is that for me, there was an inflection point around 2012 when I mm-hmm. coined the term in which the adoption of technology in Latin America showed that, as you know, nobody can innovate better and address challenges that can be massive and have an incredible total addressable market mm-hmm. than those who suffer it.
Right.
So the local entrepreneur who sees the lack of access to finance, to health, to education, who sees that agriculture, mining should be industries to be upgraded,
right.
To see the climate challenges, are the ones who are going to come up with those solutions that are innovative, because right. the guy who comes from Sweden or the US have not faced those right. challenges.
Right.
So the type of solution they will try to apply will not work. But the one who has walked the walk will know how to address it. So that's why I began to talk about this incredible recipe of made in Latin America and the Caribbean, right. LAC, that said is the adoption of technology, is young people. We are a region of young people.
Right.
Guatemala is a great proof of that. But not only those two, it has a third ingredient, and it's the frustration.
Right.
An entrepreneur who walks frustrated, thinking, how can I better my environment, my communities, will be the most innovative guy you can meet.
Right, that makes sense. And then, oftentimes, I think, especially in areas like fintech, you get these really cool innovations, in countries outside the U.S. That eventually actually sort of trickle back upstream. I think a great example of that is like Safaricom's M-Pesa.
Yes.
They were doing mobile payments far before, it was a glimmer in Tim Cook's eye sort of thing.
Yeah.
And whereas to your point, if you had an entrepreneur from London, and they wanted to replicate that, they'd probably be like, well, how are we going to do a credit card in how are we going to do a credit card in Kenya? And maybe they could have pulled it off, but we missed out on all the innovation from having a local person.
Yeah, and who would have said that the biggest neobank would be founded by a Colombian and a Brazilian and would come from Brazil to the whole world, right? So yeah, innovation and talent has no frontiers. And this is an important message because people tend to think, well, if it's not from only Brazil or Mexico within LATAM, then little innovation. Innovation has no frontiers. You may use, and at Capria Ventures, we use those two as hubs from where we tackle the rest of the region.
That makes sense. So changing gears a little bit, would love to, you've had a long career in venture capital, and I'm sure you've been to a ton of conferences.
Yes.
Would love to, I know different people have different, it's different sort of thoughts on conferences, but would love to get your take on how conferences like Volcano Summit are able to foster community and, especially in regions like, especially in regions outside of Silicon Valley.
Volcano Summit has something that I love, which is the idea of creating a community, putting the accent not only on the C of community, but collaboration. Mm-hmm. We know that in the end, venture capital is all about collaboration. Mm-hmm. And if people don't collaborate, ecosystems don't grow.
Right.
If you're trying to elbow your way in spite of the others, you don't understand that when somebody has a big win, the whole ecosystem and industry goes up.
Right.
When somebody has a big boo-boo, everybody goes down.
Exactly.
And especially in incipient ecosystems. So I think Volcano is all about connecting, collaborating, creating a community, and for that gathers all the spectrum of all the ecosystem actors. Investors, enablers, government, entrepreneurs, and
right.
that's the perfect connection of all the dots.
Right.
So I'm really enthused about what I saw yesterday and what I'm already seeing in this morning here.
Nice, awesome. So in your day job at Capria Ventures, you guys have a focus, if I'm not mistaken, on generative AI. Would love to get your take on what you think a positive vision for in the future of AI technologies, generative AI, that sort of thing can be. I feel like over the last sort of 6 to 12 months, there's been a lot of, like negative talk, negative narrative. It's, taking jobs. Maybe it's going to destroy the world. But as someone who again has had multi-decade career in venture capital, and you've got to focus on technologies like AI, would love to get your take on what you think a positive vision for a future of humanity with technologies like generative AI could be.
I love that question because at Capria, we don't focus, for example, in investing in the picks and shovels. Mm-hmm. We want to apply generative AI to sectors that can be transformational and provide a huge impact. So let's take EdTech. If you apply a lens of generative AI, you can provide to a classroom that usually has diversified type of students, their personal mentors, which makes the task of the teacher much better. The teacher can also be guided how to help this person who is falling behind without making the one who maybe is going much forward than the rest, not fall bored in the classroom and therefore discipline problems. Gen AI, and I was talking about this with somebody from Israel yesterday at the cocktail, and we were talking about the powerful statement that now people who before, if they didn't know English, they were deprived of a lot of literature, a lot of research. Now they can find it in their own language, in Quechua, in Creole. It doesn't matter. So I think we should know that generative AI has some dangers. Be prudent. Never think that the human mind will be replaced by a robot. No, but some people will be replaced by those who understand that we are at almost the 8th biggest sea change in the history of technology. Forget about the change of the internet or the mobile. This is way bigger than this, and what we are talking today may be totally useless in 4 months. And we have to understand that, which makes the demand of being always learning, always adapting, even more important. But that is for us humans. It's not for a chatbot or a robot. So we are very bullish on that. We even have some of our companies already creating red teams, applying Gen AI. Some were call centers, and we know call centers are easily companies that can die tomorrow. And because of how quickly this founder pivoted, now he's taking over a much larger market. Then we have an AgTech company that tweaked its chatbot in a way that now it has gained 30% of efficiency. That's really important. And then also one company in Africa, Seamless HR, that by applying Gen AI to all the processes and the policies of human resources is making the company much more attractive to all its clients.
And so I guess final question here, would love to leave the viewers at home with what your North Star is, a value that has sort of guided your career and that you live by.
Okay, so I have two very brief. One, I would say, I love when I first read the quote from Mahatma Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world. So I wanted to change Latin America's ecosystem. I want Latin America to be in the map of all investors, and that became one of my North Stars. But I also want to give a recognition to my mom, because she really had nothing to do with what I do today. I'm not sure that she understood fully what I was doing, but she taught me well. And she said, you know, you work for what you want to be and to do in your life, and you just keep going. You have intelligence, you have gift, you use them to the max. And that's something that she always accompanied me every time I have a challenge in front of me.
Right. I love that. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to chat today.
Thank you.
And so again, I'm JJ from Sidedoor Ventures.
I'm Susana from Capria Ventures.
Yeah, we hope you all enjoy the interview, and be sure to tune in for the rest of them.